Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixie Land. My name is Amy, and I am an ordained minister. We are in Bible study, okay? We are in the NIV, and in this video, we will be through 2025. We are going to read as many versions of the Bible as I can, really, because that was the goal from the time I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And that has to do with the fact that I went to a lot of different kinds of churches growing up, even to that point. So even by like 6 or 7, I had been exposed to different versions in the Bible. So then I was like, how many versions of the Bible are there? I think I need to read all of them if I need to, because these words aren't the same. And that's where we are. So in this video, we are in Exodus chapter 8. And we are going to do all of Exodus chapter 8, which is verses 1 through 32. So, let's jump in. The plague of the frogs. So, they have been trying to get Pharaoh, this is the story of Passover. They have been trying to get Pharaoh to let the people go. And God made Pharaoh hard-hearted. So, now we're on the plagues. Which in Passover dinner, you dip your finger in the wine, and then you make dots on your plate for every plague. The plague of the frogs. Verse 25 is actually the end of chapter 7. 7 days passed after the Lord struck the Nile. Then the Lord said to Moses, now we're in chapter 8, verse 1. Go to Pharaoh and say to him, this is what the Lord says. Let my people go so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will plague your whole country with frogs. The Nile will teem with frogs. They will come up into your palace, into your bedroom, onto your bed, into the houses of the officials, on your people, into your ovens and the kneading troughs. The frogs will go up on you and your people and all over your officials. It's like, wow, it's going to like rain frogs and stuff. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, stretch out your hand with your staff over the streams and canals and ponds and make the frogs come up on the land. So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land. Okay. The magicians did the same thing by their secret arts. They also made the frogs come up on the land of Egypt. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, pray to the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people, and I will let your people go to offer sacrifices to the Lord. Moses said to Pharaoh, I leave you the honor of setting a time for me to pray for you and your officials and for your people, that you and your houses may be rid of the frogs, except those that remain in the Nile. Tomorrow, said Pharaoh. Moses replied, because he was quite eager to get rid of them. Moses replied, it is as you will say, so that you may know there is no one like the Lord our God. So those magicians brought up frogs, and they probably could send back their frogs, but they couldn't send back the Lord's frogs. Because they're like, the frogs were like, I don't have to listen to you. I have to listen to him. You know what that's like. I say that a lot in my head. Like, I don't have to really listen to you. You know that, right? I listen to him. Okay. The frogs will leave you and your houses, your officials, and your people. They will remain only in the Nile. After Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh, Moses cried out for the Lord about the frogs that had been brought upon Pharaoh. And the Lord did what Moses asked. The frogs died in the houses, in the courtyards, and in the fields. They were piled into heaps, and the land reeked of them. But when the Pharaoh saw there was a relief, he hardened his heart and would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Oh, the plague of the gnats. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, stretch out your staff, and strike the dust of the ground. And throughout the land of Egypt, the dust will become gnats. Egypt's in a desert. There's dust everywhere. It's like for reals. It's like hardcore. Even here in my house, I have to, Dusting is a regular thing I have to keep up on for sure, because it's extra dusty. They did this. Verse 17. They did this, and when Aaron stretched out his hand with his staff and struck the dust of the ground, the gnats came upon men and animals. All the dust throughout the land became gnats. Whew. By their sea. Okay. All the dust throughout the land of Egypt became gnats, but when the magicians tried to produce gnats by their secret arts, they could not. And the gnats were on men and animals, and the magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart was hard and would not listen, just as the Lord said. Because the Lord said it's going to take all the way to the firstborn. The plague of the flies. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning and confront the Pharaoh as he goes to the water, and say to him, this is what the Lord says. Let my people go, so they may worship me. If you do not let my people go, I will send swarms of flies on you and your officials, on your people, and into your houses. The houses of the Egyptians will be full of flies, even the ground where they are. But on that day, I will deal differently with the land of Goshen, where my people live. No swarms of flies will there be, so that you will know that I, the Lord, am in this land. I will make a distinction between my people and your people." Then we got a footnote of 8 in the Septuagint and Vulgate Hebrew. It's will put a deliverance between my people and your people. Yeah, my people will not suffer, and your people will. This miraculous sign will occur tomorrow. And the Lord did this. Dense swarms of flies poured into Pharaoh's palace, into the houses of his officials, and throughout the land of Egypt was ruined by flies. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Go, sacrifice to your God here in the land." But Moses said that would not be right. The sacrifice we offer the Lord our God would be detestable to the Egyptians. And if we offer sacrifices that are detestable in their eyes, will they not stone us? We must make a 3-day journey into the desert to offer sacrifices to the Lord as he commands. Pharaoh said, "I will let you go to offer your sacrifices to the Lord in the desert, but you must not go very far. Now pray for me." Moses answered, "As soon as I leave you, I will pray to the Lord, and tomorrow the flies will leave Pharaoh and his officials and his people. Only be sure the Pharaoh does not act deceitfully again by letting the people going to offer their sacrifices to the Lord." Then Moses left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord did what Moses asked. The flies left Pharaoh and his officials and his people. Not a fly remained. But this time also Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not let the people go. So obviously this is gonna continue, and it will, all the way through chapter 11. So we should get comfy. This Pharaoh, he's a little bit thick-headed, in my opinion. And I know that God is hardening his heart on purpose, and who can resist the will of God? I know that's very hard for me. But, personally, after the first set of plagues that the magicians couldn't do, I would have just let them go. I would have been like, all right, that's real. I'm not messing around with that. Get out of here. Go and let them worship. But then I'm not really the sort to own an entire country's worth of slaves either. So, maybe I'm just the wrong person to ask.